Welcome back. What if I told you there's a very good chance that the life you're living right now, the decisions you're making, the goals you're chasing, and even the way you see yourself, what if I told you you may not have chose any of it? Not fully, not consciously. Because most people don't. Most people inherit a life and then they spend years defending it. And whether that's because of your family, because of your religion, because of the circumstance, maybe it's because you're a human being that still has instinct, even though we have enough consciousness to overrule it. Sometimes we just fall into instinct. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious decisions conscious, they will direct your life, and you will call it fate. So the question becomes, are you living the life, or are you living a story that was handed to you? Or is the life living you? It's almost like there's an invisible script. Every single person right now is probably operating on a script, not a visible one, not something you actually wrote down, but something that was written into you. Think about that. A script that says, this is what success looks like. This is what love looks like. This is who you're allowed to be. And this is what you should want. This is what you should have accomplished by now. And if you haven't, then you're not a success. And you didn't sit down and choose this. You just absorbed it. It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. That was a quote by Jiddu Krishnamurti. And the truth is, you've absorbed all this first from your parents, and then from your culture, your environment, your past experiences, the said and unsaid expectation of the society you're in, the religion you're involved or the lack thereof. And the most dangerous part is it feels like you. Feels like you belong in here. Because this programming started well before you were really conscious of it, right? Play nice. Be a good boy. Be a good girl. For me, big boys don't cry. For so many people, the goal is to go to school, get good grades. Some have the identity of an athlete. Some have the identity of intellect. Some have a creative identity that was brought in probably from parents. You do that. You get a good education. You go on to university. Maybe you become a doctor. Maybe you become a professional musician or a professional athlete, or you try and fail. And in the end, sometimes you just fell into this. It was just the circumstance you were born into, but it wasn't a conscious choice you made. It was just the path you were on. How does the script get written? So, hey, well, let's go deeper. Let's see. Because none of this happened randomly. It happened systematically, right? As a child, you weren't asking, who do I want to be? You were asking, what do I need to do to be loved, to be accepted, to be safe? And so you learned. Depending on your family, if I achieve, I get validation. If I stay quiet and go along, I avoid conflict. If I take care of others, I feel needed. If I follow the rules, I'm accepted. If I work hard, I will succeed. And those patterns, they became your identity. Aristotle said, give me a child until he is 7, and I will show you the man. You weren't becoming yourself, actually. You were becoming what worked. And the truth is, there is a cost to an unquestioned life. And here's where it starts to hurt, because if you never question the script, you end up living a life that looks right, but something doesn't feel quite right. In fact, it might feel wrong. You might achieve success, yet still feel empty. You might be in relationships, surrounded by friends, children, have all the things that you thought you were supposed to have, and yet for some reason, you still feel disconnected. And you might be doing every single thing right, and yet still feel completely lost. You might wake up one day in your 50s, and you might walk away from it all. I wonder if this is what a midlife crisis is. When you woke up and realized this wasn't your script. Carl Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But you can't become who you truly are if you're living who you were conditioned to be. And just because we say you're conditioned to be something doesn't mean it was conscious for them either. They could just be playing their script. It could be just generational, passed on from one generation to the next, to the next, and the next. And it could have purpose too, right? Maybe that's how human beings made it so far on this planet, right? They say we've got this ego, this sense of identity, this inner critic who's hypervigilant to threat. And maybe that hypervigilance to threat had your great, great, great grandparents lock into a certain way of things should be in order to have a happy life, in order to make sure human beings survived. And that's the script they started teaching to their children, and so on and so on and so on until it came to you. And whereas in a collectivist society, everybody filling their role would really work, But I don't know if that works as well in this kind of individualist society. Because somewhere in the back of the mind, you're not just a worker bee, you're something more. So why don't we talk about how would you know if you're living somebody else's story? Because you might not be. There are people who break every single mold. So let's get real. Here are the signs. First off, if you're living someone else's story, you might feel constant pressure. Like you have to push to get there. There's a background, a subtle dissatisfaction. It's almost like you're performing life instead of living it. Something in your mind says, I should be happy, so why am I not? Something feels off, but I can't explain it. And so you stay. You stay in careers that drain you. You stay in roles that don't fit you. You stay in identities that feel heavy. Henry David Thoreau said, most people live lives of quiet desperation. That desperation isn't because life is wrong. It's probably because the script is wrong. I think about it. I came from a family who were really good at surviving, really good at making it through. So I took on that same kind of survival mode. We're incredibly hard workers. That's how we survived. And I became that. And we weren't intellects. We weren't great minds, but we're hardworking. And I pulled on that role. And I'm still a hard worker, but I've moved past we aren't intellects. I think our family's also people who make a difference for the most part. And I really took on that role. But the truth is, I worked my way into a position that I thought would be smart, like making my way into upper management in a high-profile building, thinking this is going to make me happy. And I found there was no satisfaction there either. And I had to sit down and ask myself some really, really, really powerful questions. First off, what I really want out of life. And I knew I really wanted to help people. And I knew in what I was doing, that wasn't that job. And I had this thought process. I knew I wasn't smart. And I didn't have enough financial abundance to make it. There's all these things I knew that I probably couldn't do. But there came a point where there was no choice. I had to put it all in. I had to step away from the role, to go back to school, to actually live the life I'm supposed to be living. And it was scary, and it was terrifying. And I learned that I didn't really know who I was. I learned that I was more. And the truth is, the thing that kept me stuck for a long time was a real, true fear of breaking the script, right? I am not an intellect. And the only way I can move forward in life and do something that's really going to help people is by breaking the script, by tearing it up. Now, here's why people don't change. And this is why I didn't change for so long. Even when they feel it, they feel a fear. Not just the fear of failure, but the fear of disappointing others, of losing identity. And that was the biggest one, losing my identity. But in the end, my identity wasn't that great. Being misunderstood, starting over. We're all terrified of that. But you know what? The truth is, I've learned is fear. Fear is a mile wide, but it's only an inch deep. And when you're standing on the edge of fear for so many years, looking over that, looking how insurmountable it is, it's really hard to move forward. But the truth is, when you finally make that leap, you step into fear, you will see how shallow it truly is. And then you will move forward. And the truth is, it's no easy task to question what you've been taught to believe is right. But if you step outside the script, if you step into fear, you don't just risk failure. You risk becoming someone unfamiliar. There's nothing more terrifying to the inner critic, to the ego, to the sense of self, than stepping outside of the picture of who you are. But the only way through is through. And the only way to move forward is to become someone you don't recognize. Otherwise, you can just stay as you are. You can get up day after day. You can do the same job. You never have the impact in the world that you want to have. You never take a chance. You never risk. Because the truth is, the risk is not just a risk of failure, it's a risk of success. And most people are more terrified that they are powerful beyond all measure than they're terrified that they're not enough. Because the truth is, if you found out, like I found out, that you could do it, then you're going to be pretty frustrated at all the years you didn't do it before then. So the only thing you can do is rewrite your story. And this is the truth. You don't need to find your life. You can't find it because it's not out there. You create it. And the crazy thing is when creation is it's an active leaning into something, right? And the truth is, when you create it, they say, write your goal in pen, but write your plan in pencil. Because once you start down that path, if it's not the perfect and right path, then the perfect and right path will branch off that. But if you stand paralyzed by two choices and you never choose one path, then you'll never change and you'll stay in the script forever. But if you just start walking down a path, just choose one. Just because you chose one doesn't mean you're married to that path and that's forever. You can change again and again and again. And like I said, the proper path will probably branch off that path. So how do we rewrite the script? First off, awareness. You can't change what you don't see. You ask yourself, what beliefs am I living by? Like, are these my beliefs? Did I take these on? Did I choose these? What life? Did I choose this life? Or did I fall into the life that was presented for me? Question everything. Do I actually believe this? Or was I taught this? 3, separate fear from truth. Fear will say, stay here, it's safe. Truth will say, this is not you. 4, make small aligned choices. You don't need to blow up your whole life overnight. Just start choosing. Take one step. Start one task. Set one goal. Start choosing what feels true, what feels aligned. And just start. So for a second, imagine this. A version of you who's not performing anymore, who's not pretending, not following a script, but choosing fully, consciously. Oscar Wilde said it best. Be yourself. Everyone else is taken. This version, that conscious choice version, exists. But it requires something most people avoid. First off, responsibility, not blame. Responsibility for your choices, your direction, and your truth. And here's the truth. Here's the shift. You stop asking, what should I do with my life? You start asking, what feels true to me? Because the moment you question the script, you've taken the pen back into your own hand. You've taken the power back. The moment you choose differently, you start on a blank page and you're writing your own story. And maybe for the first time in your life, it actually feels like yours. So take the pen, put it to paper. Start writing your own story and keep on building your own inner advocate.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Your Inner Advocate, a podcast by Kimmin Peterson, formerly Conversations with Kimmin. If you found value in today's episode, please follow, like, and share the podcast with someone who you think may benefit from it. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and connect on Instagram at your_inner_advocate. Until next time, keep listening to and developing your inner advocate.